Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Redline Narratives Podcast. I'm Marlon Solomon, and today we're about to talk about why the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is so important to this No King protest and the general issues with the politics and stuff like that already, and how important that is to the community. So before we get into that, oh my God, this is looking. All right, I'll edit it out. I'm going to have fun. So yes, welcome everyone to Redline Narrative Podcast. I'm your boy, Marlon Solomon, and I'm here, and we're going to be talking about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., why he's so important to the No Kings protest. But before we get into that, please like, subscribe, share, do all of the great things that you can do to share the message, because this is our form of protest here at the Afro-American Academy, which the Redline Narrative Podcast is brought to you by. So when you subscribe, you'll be subscribing to the Afro-American TV, which is our free video library. So check it out. We're going to actually get into it more in detail in the podcast. But yeah, that's what we got to do. So yes, without further ado, let's get started. So yes, yesterday was the No Kings protest. It was literally like amazing. I was at another event earlier in the day, luckily it was downtown. So immediately I get done, I'm like putting quarters in my, paying the meter, making sure so I can go back to thinking I'm getting there. In fact, I got some pictures. Hold on, let me just share that. Right. So I got some pictures here that I took. That's one of the things I do love to do about Boston, especially on a beautiful day where you can see how, just see the beautiful city, see the people come walking through. They had all their signs. Oh boy, some of the signs, actually, maybe I should put a warning out. Some of the signs are not for PG. No. Yeah.
So, of course, I'm late to the No Kings, and people look like they're leaving.
Yeah, so that was it. It looked like they were actually even leaving, right? So I'm thinking I'm all late, but I'm still going. I see this guy right here, no more. Oh yeah, then he was playing music. They were playing music. It was actually sounding pretty good. So it was just a lovely atmosphere, right? If anybody, I've never really been to like a protest person, and I've never really been to, that's the largest protest I know I've been in. So, but it was just full of love, right? It was full of people trying to understand what's going on, trying to do something. There were a lot of people there just for necessary healing. And that's why I was there. I just, with all what's going on with the new administration, not so new anymore, was it 9 months in or whatever? I'm telling you, you just feel like, you're always dealing with it, like what needs to happen, and that's even why we even changed this, podcast, and we said, look, we're going to do a new branding. So today is my first go at it. It's not supposed to be super professional. It's just supposed to at least get us started, and I'm excited, But the No Kings protest actually was the inspiration for me to, I've been trying to do this for a while. And I went there yesterday, and I saw so many great people, and they were doing so many, this wonderful things. Oh, yeah, that's the music of the guy. There he is. Oh, man, it was lovely. That's the guy. That's when I took the picture. There you go, there you go, there you go, there you go, there you go. Nice. So this is like basically me walking in, and I thought I was late, right? So it is what it is, but I wasn't. There were so many people, right? I just saw so many people leaving. I just couldn't imagine what I was going to see, and you'll see it as we go forward. right, let me mute this for a little bit while we have that playing. So I went there because I decided that with the work that I do here at the African American Culture Initiative and African American Academy and African American TV and Redline Narratives, you have like some framings and things because, and we truly believe a lot of the issues we face in America today is because of we are following two different narratives, right? There's two different storylines to the way the United States is set up. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. And once we cannot find any common ground to discuss, there's just no way we're going to get to solve any problems. That's just how it's going to be. So, there's something that that was near and dear to me because I knew it was going to be at the Common, and that was to make sure I go and pay respects to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right? And I know that, when we think about this work and, we think about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it's a lot, right? I mean, he did so much. But the Reverend, right, Martin Luther King Jr., right, in this context, in the No Kings contest, in fact, I'm going to ask you, I know it's no kings, and I'm not going to argue with you about no kings. I'm not going to argue with you about the no kings at all, because I know in the end of the day that you understand where I'm coming from, okay? So while we're not going to, I want you guys to make an exception for at least one king, which is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, because his story in his legacy unlocks unlocks the pathway to resolving this issue once and for all that we are having with the far right. And that's really a lot about, the secret about what we do is that, to be honest, y'all need to ask yourself why they're so fervent, why they're so visceral, why they're so adamant to just erase African American history. And we as people of the multiculture, look at the multiculture you're seeing in your screen now from yesterday's protest. All right. We as a multiculture have a duty to learn and digest the world through multiple facets so that we can solve problems. And when I think of the Reverend and what he means to them, right? Remember, they're the ones that declared a war on us. Okay? This is a culture war. As more than anything, because let's be real, this is not even, Trump is a small part, he's a focal point, and I get it, but there's something bigger going on here. I think we all understand that after Trump is even aging. He can't live forever. It's been funny how he's been talking about heaven lately. But regardless of what he's going through, in the end of the day, there's a war that's being played here. There's a battle of cultures that's being played here. And if we do not do what what we need to do, we're going to find ourselves in some pretty deep doo-doo, right? And protesting, which I thought was lovely, is part of what we've got to do, right? But we've got to do it understanding who we're actually working against, who we're actually fighting. And that is this Confederate culture. And you can find more on the Afro-American TV YouTube channel. Just, we got like categories, we've got all kinds of stuff, but you can find it there. And the culture of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King to them is basically that do we really understand what he did? Because the framing that we have in this country is wrong. Our framing is basically that we've been living in a 250-year democracy, right? And yes, we've never really quite gotten there, but we're still moving towards the ideals of the United States of America. And let's keep it real. All right? When did democracy actually start? When did democracy actually start? When did we actually start this process of being in a democracy? Right? Now, let me be very clear. In the beginning, there was not even white people or black people. I mean, it wasn't even just white people that had an issue with that could vote. It was white men landowners. And without white men landowners, when you have it was actually about 6 or 7% of the entire American population. That was the that American population. That's who could vote. Only 6 or 7% of African American people in America. The whole population. So what does that mean? So we were not founded as a democracy. That's fine. Okay. What they did, they started it was founded as an oligarchy. And if it was founded as, and that would mean, like, let's look at it what it would mean today. That would mean people like Elon Musk. I mean, who are the top 6%? That's who could vote. Elon Musk, the Bezos, the Zuckerbergs, the people, the Trumps, all these people with millions and millions of dollars, that's who can vote. Is that a democracy to you? No. So it wasn't started as democracy, but the ideals were there. But I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The founding fathers knew that they were kicking the can way down the line. They were not thinking about that, they said we the people, but they didn't mean that we the people. They meant we the white people. And and at this point, we, the white owning landmen, right? That's what they meant. Now, let me be very clear before I go into too much. When I say white, I refer to the whole white race, okay? But within any race, there are cultures. So I definitely make distinctions. When I'm talking about culture, I make specific distinctions to ensure that people understand that white is a race. It's not an ethnicity. A lot of conflation that goes on there. So you can be German, you can be Jewish, you can be Spanish. We call them spicy whites. And, Italian, also pretty spicy white. Anyway, you get where I'm coming from. There are different groups, Russian, Ukrainian. Yes, there's so many different cultures within. So when I say white, I do mean white race, but in this context, I'm talking from the standpoint of the people who actually, who are espousing this. It's not coming from me personally. I'm just saying in general, the founding fathers. Okay. So the founding fathers, right? We can give them credit for starting the process that would eventually turn into democracy, but we cannot give democracy. Say, why not? Because if you give them the democracy, then that basically discounts the women that couldn't vote at the time, the African Americans that couldn't vote at the time, and all the Native Americans, the Mexican, all the Americans that were here at that time. All right? You're erasing them. And this is why narratives are so important. So we also know from we had the Civil War, and after the Civil War, there was 100 years before the Civil Rights era, which was the ideological defeat of the Confederacy, which is why we have the Confederate Culture playlist. A lot of great stuff, documentaries. I can tell you that one has a lot of good stuff on it. If you want to understand the Confederate culture. So the Confederate culture now, right, okay, is obviously alive and well today in our, oh, look at this dangerous guy. Look at this dangerous guy. This T-Rex. There are a lot of these blow up animals, wild animals all over the place. So, yes. So now that we, when we think of Confederate culture, we have to understand that it's all lumped into one. Why? Because we're talking about a landmass that has a group of people with a certain brand of culture. I will do a video. I know one of the videos are in there about why the South has racism and African Americans in it. We'll do a video about that later, but for now, we'll just focus that it's the South. Even when they talk about how, oh, we're the party of Lincoln, we're the party that sleeps free. Yes, but there was a realignment in the 60s. I always say, well, then why all the black people leave your party? And that was, because of the Southern strategy and other stuff. But in essence, right, the South is the homeland of a tribe of white people, the Confederates, and they are, it's part of their religion to hate. It is their religion. I don't know what else to tell you, and that's the cultural definition. I'm not going to. There's a lot of things about Christian nationalism, and things. In fact, it's good that I'm talking about the Christian nationalism now, because there's a caveat that we need to definitely talk about. There's that Christian. All right. So the No Kings protest, right? It's all about people. They've declared war on us, right? We call it a culture war, but is it really a culture war, right? Is it not more of a holy war? And before you say, well, is it technically, it doesn't really matter. Let me just be very clear. It doesn't matter what I think it is. It doesn't matter whether you think it is. It doesn't matter whether it doesn't even matter if it's even like a tangible or reasonable. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that the people with power, right, believe it. Okay? So if they're trying to do, if you didn't learn anything about the white Christian nationalism and stuff, they believe it's the end days. And part of these end days would be when African Americans and people of culture of all across America outnumber the white people. It's the great replacement theory. They've got, there's a rabbit hole of culture, trust me. But these Confederates are literally, like, as part of some of their religion, they have been living in this area. So it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. At the end of the day, it's still the same thing. You're from the South, all right? So that's why when you think of things in terms of culture, you always have to put what is the homeland of the people? Because they will have a homeland. All right? Grab me a little. So, so this No Kings, this ideological holy war that we're fighting, right? And I always like to say, don't ask the Ukrainians. You see, when people declare war on you, you're fighting. It doesn't matter. Ask the Ukrainians if they chose a war. You don't get to choose a war. When somebody declares war on you, it's time for war. This is what it was about yesterday, because this is the way we fight in inflatable dinosaurs, obviously. It was actually very beautiful, and chickens. But that's the multiculture for you, right? Do too much good, don't really talk about it the right way. But nonetheless, that's what the spirit of yesterday was for. And we are fighting this culture that has hate in its heart, And we've got to understand that the relevance of Martin Luther King is that they, after the 100 years of the Civil Rights Act, after 100 years of this, they literally, they were forced to practice democracy. At the time, at the end of the last Civil Rights Act, I count the three. Of course, the Voting Act, just the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Act, and then the Fair Housing. But you see, the Fair Housing, I know everybody's going to say I'm all biased because the red line is redlining, but that is the spatial. That's what takes care of the actual use of space. That's the first time in the history, of the United States that the South could not, I guess, at least in theory, as you know, it didn't stop just like that, but in theory, could stop using space as a tool of racism and hate and discrimination, right? So we count that's April 11, 1968. Okay. So when you have a situation where the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King literally led a movement to get 3 civil rights acts passed and then have them at the end, actually not, force them to practice democracy. That's when you start having to think. There was no democracy in the South ever since the beginning of time before April 11, 1968. I'll say that again. There was no democracy in the South ever. Like they had never practiced it. It was slavery, then Jim Crow, which is authoritarianism, as we can see now. And because there had never been democracy, now you can say that there was somewhat of a democracy in other parts of the United States, and you are right, there was, but women couldn't vote and all. It was a lot, okay? But even that being said, okay, there wasn't really democracy. Okay, there really wasn't a democracy. And there's no way to shade that. And that is where a lot of this work now starts to open up. So if there wasn't a democracy, then the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King is directly responsible as a man of God, as a religious figure, leading his people against this Christian nation. I'm putting it in Christian terms because we have to engage in the narrative. We can't be above the narrative. And this is where I'm trying to tell a lot of people in the multicultural, you have to, you have to use religious terminology in what you do, because this is a religious thing now. And like I said, it doesn't matter what you believe, it matters what they believe. Okay, because they're the ones declaring war. They're the ones tearing down the whole country because of this Christian belief. So you would be wise to engage in it. So their narrative, but then you have a Christian leader that defeated them and is therefore the founder of at least the best version of democracy we've ever seen. So I'm gonna call it democracy because at least this one I have a chance. Right. And we're gonna talk a lot about why, what they're trying to pull over our eyes with the redlining in the space later, because this podcast, I'm so excited, y'all. I know I'm segueing all over the place. That's why I started today, because I said I'm gonna be amped up and I'm going to be moving along, and I just need to get my rhythm. So bear with me if today's podcast is a little going all over the place, but that's how we got to get started. So, but yeah, we're, look at this picture This is like all the people I saw. Isn't that crazy? There was everyone everywhere. Right? Uh-oh, there he goes. This is a good walk I did. So yeah, so you're just looking at all these people, right? And that's why they try to destroy our history, because our history is literally the kryptonite that exposes them and reduces their moral authority on almost anything they have. So you got to tie them in. That's why I don't call them Republicans. That's a whole nother podcast, because we have a lot of topics to cover. But yes, all these this protests, these Confederate culture, which is now more of an ideology, is what's driving a lot of this stuff. So we've got to call them out by their historics, because that's why they're trying to erase our history, so that our history will not reflect on them, right? Our history reflects on them. Remember, they're the ones that fought for slavery. So any talk about our slavery also say, well, who did this terrible stuff to you? They must be some horrible people. So they're ashamed of their heritage. So that's what a lot of what we're going through and a lot of what we're doing. I don't know why this isn't playing right, but that's what a lot of what we're doing. Okay. So so once you realize that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King is the founder of American democracy, somebody that has literally defeated them. Now, whatever you want to say, of course he had to help, and it's not up to, you must have a focal point. And that focal point, the Reverend Doctor, if you notice one thing about him, they always remove the Reverend. It's always Doctor. And we say it too. So I'm not even going to say, everybody has been programmed to say it. Please don't ever say that. Try and use the word Reverend, because this is a holy war. And if there's anything that we can do to fight, right? Please, these narratives are what this is about. Remember, we're in a democracy. We are not going, that picture is wonderful. We are in a democracy. We are not going to be able to not do nothing. And we cannot fight and be violent. We believe in by any peaceful means necessary. But we got to do something. So what is it? So if you notice, this whole battle is like about narrative, right? Because narrative gives permission structures for things to happen, right? So if somebody has been deliberately twisting and lying and distorting the narrative on purpose, and they do this. Have you heard what they said about January 6th? Then you will know that we must be very deliberate. It isn't optional. There are certain little things that we can say that build up the narrative in the right direction. And this is one of them. And that's the use of the word reverend in front of Martin Luther King, because that denotes this narrative. And please hit me in the comments. I would definitely want to hear what you guys say. Okay? When you use the word reverend and a victorious reverend, and when you know the story that he was victorious in attaining the Civil Rights Acts, all three of them, then, and forcing, remember, they had to be forced. They didn't do this willingly. They didn't come over to the good side because they wanted. They were forced to, practice democracy and include others. Okay. He's the founder. Now, when you get through that process on the other side, to them, he is somewhat of a religious Moses of some sort. And this, right, because he's the good guy. He won. God was working for him. So that means if God is working for him, he's obviously not, God is not picking two sides. God doesn't two sides it, both sides it. You know how that's the thing that God doesn't do that. It's one side or the other. Very divisive guy. He's on the good and the bad. That's how it works. So, once you divide, once the divisions are, once the divisions are set, right? Now, on the Confederate side, to them, he is like I said, a religious Mecca. He is the one that is, so we have to call it reverend, because if God's working on him, then that means you guys are working for who? Because you're not working for God. God is not both sides in it. Okay, so that is the underlying narrative behind. So tell me what you think about that narrative. I think it's a powerful one. So if you use the reverend, you are reminding them, you are adding to the narrative that God was against you, right? So that's a powerful narrative. Okay, man, look at these pictures. Wow, I took some good ones, huh? I know. Look at those pictures go. Right. So this is the main stage for the No Kings rally. You couldn't even get close, bro. It was tough. Then that's the I don't even know who that was that was speaking. I didn't get to see a whole lot of people speaking. If I wanted, I would have voted for my father. Okay, I don't know where these people are out here wilding. Okay, crazy. Another dangerous animal, right? Missing democracy. Yeah, it was a great turnout, man. It was great. Of course, release the Epstein files. Oh, I'm gonna do one of everything. I got a lot to do, but I'll be just streaming a whole lot more now. I got everything set up. I think at least halfway the way I like it. So we'll be moving more. But yeah, we'll be doing one on some of these cultural takes, just so we can really look into how things are and like try to say, okay, what are the best ways we can move forward, craft a narrative that brings so many people together. This is a video. The video, I don't know why the internet is acting all janky. Very embarrassing, actually. But anyway, that's Elizabeth Warren. I remember that. I have a dream. Look at that. That's funny. Yeah. Yep. I love America too. Oh, Lebanese was there. My family's actually from Lebanon. Ice, zip ties, naked show. Some of the stuff that's going on, guys. I'm sure you can see how angry people were. Some of the stuff going on is like, there's so much coming at you from this administration that you can't even keep everything straight, right? You know, I am anti-fascist. That's also using Antifa. Use anti-fascist. That's another powerful name. Why? Because anybody, American, should be anti-fascist. But when you say Antifa, it kind of, it's not. Actually, I got that from a lady. I can't take credit for that one. There's one, and it's on the multiculture on the YouTube. So be watching the videos I post there because they're very important. They have a lot of great information. No dictators, pro-America, right? There's nothing more American. Yes, that is true. There's nothing more American than standing against kings. That is true. Except the fact that our democracy is only 57 years old, and that's what I'm going to get to next. Just wanted to go through some of these pictures of no kings. I took some B-roll. Yeah, look at the flag fly. Wow, it's a nice one. Yes, I'm always getting information in case I need to do another documentary. That's yours truly taking a picture of his shadow. Don't ask me why. The democracy dies in silence. I just love this picture. The guy just taking a break on his phone. Yes, so this is where I was ending up. So like I said, I came here because I am trying to, I was going there because I understand that as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King is the founder of modern democracy. Well, not even modern. I don't want to say that's democracy generally, because there was no democracy in the South. There was hoses, I was even, the Selma Bridge was just really something about freedom of speech. They didn't have the First Amendment. We're not even talking about the second, third, or fourth. They didn't have the first. So that is not a democracy. So considering he brought democracy to them, forced it down their throats as a religious man, I think means something. And I mark the beginning of American democracy as 57 years. In fact, I was supposed to have an event. It was canceled this last year just from crazy stuff. But anyway, 57 years after Martin, It's an Easter event that we do here at the African American camp because we have to create space for this narrative to grow, right? He did defeat them, and he did bring democracy to America. And the reason why that's important for this is because you see, that's why people didn't see him coming. Because you were living in a 250-year democracy that was safe, and it had been safe for such a long time, so much stability. But that's because you brought into a narrative that allows you to erase African American experience. And that is why they snuck up on a lot of people, because you thought you were living in a 250-year democracy. No, sir, you were living, and ma'am, you were living in a 57-year democracy. In fact, Nigeria has an older democracy than America. All right? Now, and these are the narratives that we've got to work on. Okay? There was no such thing as even the capitalism that we say that we espouse. Then how do we destroy thousands of African American homes and businesses and business centers if we're capitalists? But then you know, there's something that when you control the very means of production, which include my body, that makes it so that it is just not a tenable a narrative to uphold that you should even continue to not be recognized by your historic footprint that you left on this nation. So that's what we can do. We can fight back by changing the narrative. We can choose a narrative that erases African Americans by saying that there was a democracy when we couldn't vote we did not, and there was legal abuse of space and trust. Remember, we paid our taxes back then too, and that was stopped with the Fair Housing Act. That actually people don't understand. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. died when he died, April 4th. The Fair Housing Act was stalled in Congress. It was his death that allowed it, and the riots of Holy Week Uprising, which is from April 4th to April 11th, as you can see there, 1968. That's when the momentum came in to pass the act that finally made legal apartheid in the United States illegal. So that's why he had to give his life for all of us, actually, so we could live in this version of democracy. So I went to the No Kings protest to honor him, honor that narrative, right? I went to share with anyone that would listen to me about what I just shared with you today. I know I have some pictures. Yeah, this is one of the ladies. I gave her a card. We had a good discussion. She actually asked me about why she kind of had to do some research, why there weren't Black people there and more African Americans there. And I said, well, that's because, and going back to what I was just there to kind of help people. And in fact, there was we won't go into that now, but there was a lot of things wrong with that site that didn't give any context to even why the Embrace statue was there. I had to explain to multiple people. So there was a need for that knowledge to be in the space. So I was glad I was there to help. This lady was like, where, African Americans went there. And I said, well, you know why? It's because of the narrative. The narrative, it does not connect us. This is a battle between the North and the South, as far as we're concerned. There's an African proverb that goes, when two elephants are fighting, well, in this case, an elephant and a donkey, but when two big animals are fighting, it's the grass that suffers. And we're the grass in this scenario. And you know, I was like, this is your story. This is your narrative. You're talking about a 250-year-old democracy, but we know very full and well, because we weren't allowed to vote till the 60s, and our even though I know the Voting Rights Act was in 1965, I'm counting all three of them because the space is such a big part of it, and and what I'm advocating for is just definitely gerrymandering. We need to attack that. That's the infrastructure of what causes a lot of this. But so that the narrative doesn't connect, right? Right. This is a 57-year democracy, and your narrative erases us. So that's why we're not physically here. We're kind of erased from the narrative. Is like being erased from the story that we can all, get along. And that's what even Redline Narrative is all about. I hope you guys join this family, Redline Narratives Nation, and we are going to be building up, a lot of good meaning people over time and having a conversation and weaving a narrative that we can all get behind. Together, we're going to be collecting data. Y'all don't know about me, bro. I mean, I'm in it. Like, I'm in it to win it, right? So, this culture war that's going on, it's going to take a lot of explanations and a lot of getting the word out. So, she, when I told her, she understood, and she took it well, and she understands. Well, she said she understood I believe she did. She understood why one would not feel wanting to celebrate. All next year is going to be 250-year democracy. And it's not true. Okay? There was no democracy. There was lynching. There was killing. There have been two, they always say the Great Migration. I call it the Great Escape or the Great Exodus. But nonetheless, right, two distinguishable mass displacement events happen because everybody's looking at it because the Confederacy is an ideology. It doesn't need to be a federal official. The states make up the Confederacy. And even 100 years later, during the Civil Rights Act, they did not vote for the Civil Rights Act to pass. They had to be forced to practice democracy, to treat people as human beings. That's all pretty low bar, if you ask me. Right? And they were able to redline and destroy all the communities all at once during that time period. We never even really got to see the real results because they had already leveled the communities and then passed the laws. But the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is the key to this, because also the religious angle. I'm not going to go too much into it right now. I'm just going to tell you this. Can't remove God out of this situation because they put God into it. So if you want voters, there are a lot of people that voted this year for Trump that literally they just voted for him because obviously they just voted for him because obviously they just voted for him because they heard the word God. I mean, some people it's as simple as that. We do not know why he's doing what or what he's doing, but it's just God, so that's what we're doing. So, people vote for him. So, and we that are in the multicultural, we do a lot of stuff that are we care for the poor. We, we love our neighbors, ourselves. We try to be understanding and create accommodations for people that are others. And we are, it's not perfect, but we're working on it. It is important for us to continue, delving in and understanding what we're doing and what we're up against. And the narratives, if that's all we got to do is say that, then let's say that. Let's say it's 57-year democracy. Let's say it. Okay? We can't continue to think, and because he's a religious figure, like I said, this is me in front. Got my Redline Narrative sweater. Oh yeah, this lady, she was great. She was playing Bar Marley. Yeah, but that's what we got to do. We got to fight. We got to have a different narrative. We got to take on this narrative of the holy war, and that they want a Christian nation. That's what they say, Christian nationalists. So they are involved. They've declared holy war on you. And if you guys remember from um, the 9/11 days, okay, when that's what the word jihad was, right? They say holy war, jihad. Jihad actually means struggle. It means doing something that probably isn't your normal routine and making sure you do it. So that's all you got to do, really. It's not about like, we've got to push back on the narrative. Say, well, how does that help? Trust me, there's a reason why the other side spends so much time in creating narrative, erasing narratives. I mean, like I always say, well, January 6th, we are all old enough to understand what happened on January 6th, and you can hear what they're saying. So only imagine what they've done in the past when there wasn't any social media, when there wasn't any way for people to communicate, right? I mean, that's one of the things. I'm so very proud to join the independent media wave that's going across the United States. Um, but that's so I can use this medium to fight the narrative, and I hope you guys, um, you know, um, join us. Like I said, I'm going to get better. I know I'm stumbling all over the place, you know, but it's real talk. We are going to have to come up with a narrative all of us can agree with, and that narrative will naturally alienate the hatred. It will explain to Latino people, oh, this is what they did to us too, right? All the new immigrants and the multicultural that do not understand, they will have an avenue to understand. Oh, there's a tribe of white folks in the South that just have hate in their heart. And we can see from what they do, right? Taking people. I'm not gonna back down. You guys are taking people and zip tying kids. You guys are, this is why we're calling you fascists. And you say, oh, we're not, we're anti fascist. No, you are acting like a fascist, okay? When you are acting and trying to implement Sharia law, your version of Sharia law on us by controlling women's bodies, we notice this. Trust me, I am spiritual, not like a huge religious person, okay? Not going to church and all the time and not, praying 100 times. No, I'm not. I'm just a normal guy, but I do understand. So, coach, let me tell you something. The passion that comes out when you use religion is something that cannot be combated if you're taking God out of everything. So I want, even if you don't understand religion, then understand that a lot of us even don't want to be involved with anything holy, because if we're involved with something holy, right, we're like putting religion and this and that, and religion has been used for violence. Look at the white Jesus that they show that they used to, basically imprint in the minds of, remember, you have to think about this is like 200, 300 years, they're getting white Jesus picture, right? And they're now thinking there's only white people in heaven, right? This is you know, this is the game that has been run with the holiness. They've used those same biblical scriptures to justify slavery, to justify Jim Crow and segregation. If you're getting religious fuel from the Bible on how to do these hateful things, like I said, you've got to really put that into context. We cannot run away from it. The multiculture needs to find some way of espousing religious terminology, because it matters. You cannot say, oh, well, I don't believe. Okay, great. But do you believe that the visceralness and the passion that religion causes, do you really think that you can have a rational source of that kind of inspiration and that kind of get to itness, that kind of consistency? that, I mean, they've been systemically working this system ever since the Civil Rights Acts were passed. And that's why they snuck up on us. I can't say that more enough, because they snuck up on us because we thought that they were just going to go away into the, but they're just going to go away into the ether and that's it. Okay, they all lost. No. In a 57-year democracy, one must be very vigilant because we just beat them. They were forced into practicing democracy. They've been wanting to be racist for a long time, and they had to be multicultural with all this wokeness. And now we got a chance to correct things and make things the way they need to be, where we can be openly racist. Isn't that the narrative that it really is? And that's why I say if we had seen this as a 57-year democracy, we would have been able to pinpoint, okay, we have to keep an eye on them. They didn't like this. We had to be having programs to try and deprogram this, rather than let it fester. Because like my good friend here, I had another guy that I met, Harry. Oh man, he was a great conversation from Philadelphia. He was just in town. Right? You know, he said that Obama was a wake-up call. And it was a wake-up call to them. Once they saw that, they're like, this is happening. They're taking over. And for those of you who don't understand the Great Replacement theory, and like I said, there's a lot of information on the Afro-American TV YouTube channel. Please subscribe. A lot of information on the Confederate culture and this Christian nationality and things like this. They think, in fact, I'll direct you to one, the Vox. I'm going to have some time. After I get done with this analysis, I'm going to watch some videos. So if you want to stay on and watch, I'm going to watch some videos on the YouTube channel, and so y'all can see what I'm talking about and what the Redline Narrative Podcast is going to be looking like moving forward. But when Obama's the wake-up call, they only wish they could just cleanse us like they did with the highways in the 60s. They can't now, so now they have a problem. Their northern buddies are all into this woke stuff. Oh, I actually have something on woke as well, some narratives on woke that we'll have a discussion about later on the Redline Narratives Podcast. I got to get my catchphrase. I got to get comfortable. So I just thank all of y'all for, I know we have a couple people watching, so just thank all of y'all for joining us today. But yeah, I'm working on this and we're going to get better. But yes, back to the Holy War, man. So you've got to use religious terminology if you're going to combat a religious terminology. You cannot do it you will not be able to duplicate the amount of passion that is required to win such terrible thing that's going on now in our country, that they're trying to impose their Christian nationalism on them. So anyway, yes, at the No Kings, I was asking people like Terry. I said, Terry, I need you to make an exception. I know there's no kings, but we need you to be kings with at least, can we have an exception for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King? Can we have one king, just the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King? He was laughing. He said, yeah, that sounds cool. So it's cool with Terry from Philadelphia. So welcome. So yeah, please put your comments in the chat if you have anything to say. So that's why I went to the No Kings yesterday. I went there to recognize the Reverend Doctor. I saw some cool names, Chuck Turner, who was instrumental in the People Before Highways Day. Oh, this lady this is the kind of love that was going on. She came, I said, can I take a picture of you? She said, yes. So she's hugging it. She took a picture, hugging the thing, the statue, loves. One of the things I wanted to say about this also, there is no place, I didn't see it, where you know that this is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, maybe I didn't see it. Maybe it's written somewhere where I didn't see it, but maybe I didn't go around the other side of the wall. Maybe that's where it is. But, I didn't see it. So I would like everybody to please, this is just pictures from walking back towards my car. I went inside, the graveyard on the way back to my car. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So, yes, this is the war that we're facing, This is what we got to do. We've got to understand, that this battle that we're battling is, it's simply not going to go away. We're going to have to fight and make the fight and do what is necessary to make sure that we are taking this fight to them. And that's what the No Kings was about. So we're going to make an exception for the Reverend Doctor because, like I said, it plays into the narrative. We have to engage with this narrative if you want to defeat the narrative, right? And that's the culture to thrive right there. We will be talking more about a lot of different things. So we're going to move on. I'm going to, this is kind of what we're going to be doing now moving forward as well. We're going to be talking about a lot of these current day issues and relating it to the No Kings, right? And the fight for democracy that we find ourselves in. This is our version of fighting back, and this is how we're going to be doing it. Moving on. So we're excited, like I said, I know I got to get better at what I do, but we need your support. So make sure you follow, like, donate. Check us out. With our Instagram, and we'll be able to do these things greatly. So anyway, okay, so on our Afro-American Academy YouTube, all right, let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay. So we've got, like I said, it is a free video library, right? All the videos that we talk about here on the podcast will be available there. So subscribe, right? You'll learn something, right? But we have the multicultural.
We are back, and we are joined now by Naomi Klein.
If you're looking, now these are all podcasts that I've listened to at some point, right? So a lot of the multicultural, right, even has like Richard Colbert or Steve Colbert. I don't think I can play that because it's not really my stuff. I'm just showing you what's on there. Okay. We've got news clippings, ideologies from thinkers, this Shahid Bolson. Oh, this is also a good real one.
Power.
This guy is great.
That is not
from the Democracy Docket. Oh my God. If you really want to know, in fact, he's the one giving me a lot of inspiration on how we do things, right, here in America, and how we can make a fight. And that's why I said, well, I got to do my bit. So that's what I'm doing. All right. Another playlist that's really important, the Confederate one.
A few years back, the online right became enamored of a new epithet for liberals.
A lot NBC. Everything from the busing battle.
The following program contains the use of racial epithets in historical.
Nazi town.
There was the Black Legion. There was the Liberty League. There were the white shirts, the black shirts and brown shirts. There were the silver shirts.
Free speech stop but you riot.
They just proliferated.
Right. So much information out here, as well as not just videos on things like that. So I just wanted to make sure everybody saw. So this is actually, it's a lot of work. This lady right here is Heather Cox, is another lady that's a new one. I have to watch this and then make some clips for you. All right. So that is what I wanted to point out about the Afro-American TV. Remember, support, like, subscribe. It's very helpful for our program. Now, I actually do have a couple loaded up, so I'm going to go to that. This one is about Abby Phillips. I'm just testing this out. And then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Because J.D. Vance knows that some racists in the Republican Party are supportive of their administration and does not want to antagonize them.
And one of the messages referred to black people as monkeys and watermelon people. One fantasized about raping their enemies and driving them to suicide. One called rape, quote, epic. Another supported Republicans who they believe support slavery.
Now, this is actually from the Couch Politics Please follow him. He's a great commentator. If you like Abby Phillips, he deals almost exclusively with Abby Phillips stuff. So, and his podcast, I have a lot of his podcasts saved in the Afro-American TV. But basically, this is about the story that just happened last week, where there was this group chat where we had some young Republicans, and they're not really that young from what I hear. It can be up to 40 years old. And they were literally talking about racism and, love Hitler and a lot of terrible things that were said on, on their like private chat, right? So, I definitely want to dive into this. And this, really the only real value of this is just to show that there is a continuum and an underbelly where this is accepted. There's no way that you can see a text chain like this, and it had like thousands of messages, I don't know, but it's like, it wasn't like a short like sample size, right? Not like a small sample size. It's a huge sample size. And they literally, they literally were going in. You can see that this is the culture, okay? Now, this is Confederate culture, okay? And this, the reason why it's so embarrassing, because, they've been saying, oh, why are you calling us racist? But then you have this, this explosion. It is awful. And I think, what's going on with these Confederates, and please, let's call them Confederates. There's a difference between Confederates and Republicans. I have respect for Republicans. These are conservative Americans. Okay, very, very important distinction to make. Okay, we are framing fairly, not the way we want. We're doing it just because it's, when it's not the way we want to do it, then we're going to do it. We're going to do it with fairness. So the Confederates are the ones that believe in this. To be clear, the Confederates are those who believe in this racist, capitalist form of capitalism, this racist form of capitalism. Those are, and then the Republicans are conservative Americans. The last great Republican was the late, great John McCain. So that kind of gives you an idea of what I respect when it comes to Republicans. So when I say Republican, I know it's hard, and I'm still working on the narrative because we're being programmed to say they are the Republicans because they are Republicans. I get it. But we want to make a distinction between the Liz Cheneys, and, those who are fighting for the Republican Party the way we want it, the way it needs to be, if it's in compliance with laws and Constitution. And we want to make a clear distinction between those that are not. So the Confederate culture, right? This is just Confederate ideology. It's about hate. It's about and hating everyone. If you're not white, man, even women, they don't even like women. Okay, that's something that we need to look at, right? So they were all talking about this, and this was the topic of the day. So let me just show this guy. He's so fantastic. He's such a good commentator.
Now, one of the messages
right?
referred to
That's
black
the guy.
people
This
as
the guy who
monkeys
runs
and watermelon people.
Couch Politics.
One fantasized about
Very,
raping their
very,
enemies
very
and
good
driving
guy.
them to
I love
suicide.
his
One called rape,
commentary.
quote, epic. Another supported Republicans who they believe support slavery. One talked about sending political opponents to gas chambers to, quote, watch people burn now. Slurs were reportedly used more than 250 times, including racist and homophobic ones. The outlet reports that at least one texter lost their job for this, and another had their job offer rescinded, and at least two of them apologized. High-profile state Republicans like Republican Representative Lee Stefanik have condemned the messages, and the young Republicans called the chains vile, disgraceful, and inexcusable. But Vice President J.D. Vance is taking a different approach tonight, citing the text of a Democratic candidate for Virginia's Attorney General from a couple of years ago in which he suggested a lawmaker get 2 bullets to the head. Vance writes, quote, "This is far worse than anything said in a college group chat." And the guy who said it...
Now, I'll stop it there. Now, I want you guys to really see that they are promoting this, they are defending, they're not being equivocal, and that's all you need. Oil and water don't mix. Don't try to shake it up to make it mix. Okay? That's why it's important to separate the Republicans from the Confederates, because you want, not all Republicans, we have to give people the benefit of the doubt to an extent, but when you are defending this, you have now the burden of proof on you to tell me that you're not racist. You have to prove to me. I don't have to accept anything. And this is where I think some of the narrative needs to be really strongly placed.
Could become the AG of Virginia. I refuse to join the pearl clutching.
Hitler, what are you talking about?
Dumbass.
Man said that himself. Story is that it was not the least bit surprising to me. I mean, I don't think anyone who I know who's familiar with where the Republican Party has been going the past decade or so is the least
Hitler or fascist.
Well, J.D. Vance literally called Donald Trump Hitler. What are you talking about?
Dumbass.
J.D. Vance said that himself. J.D. Vance called Donald Trump Hitler.
Kristen, and also Ben,
that's another amazing thing about a lot of what happens within the Republican Party is how there's always a video for something, because their narrative is completely based in lies. So therefore it is pliable, and we can ply it and we can twist it. But, and like I said, we're using the right kinds of terminology. But if you, I mean, you can see how to have this kind of thing out there and there's no clear equivocal condemnation. And, you know, I always say, so what are you guys going to do about it? You're just going to condemn it and then act like, oh, and keep quiet. Like, it's not, you would expect that a group that was always complaining about being called racist, that had a problem with racism. I mean, it's not like everybody does. The KKK don't vote Democratic. Okay. So what are you guys doing to, and the fact that you do nothing and you just say, well, yeah, we condemn it and then keep quiet is exactly what, because they need them. That's their base. There's something actually very interesting going on within the Confederate culture now, is that I think it's really being true that the health of Donald Trump is really something that's going on, and people are now, their factions, or J.D. Vance is taking out his group. Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to actually sound more like an actual Republican. And now whether she can stick with that, I don't know. But I'm not here to condemn anybody. You will have to condemn the things you said, because you said them, to be fully embraced. But I will embrace you to as far as the extent as you would give me the ability to embrace you. Like I said, oil and water don't mix. I'm with the water, baby. I ain't messing with no oil. Okay? No baby oil either. I couldn't resist. So, all right. So that's that one, right? So there's another video that I wanted to play, and I'm going to be like doing more of this, and this is really what more of the thing will be about. We're going to be looking at videos. I'm going to be explaining certain things, because sometimes you'll look at me, and my job is just to kind of look at everything and kind of like bring it together. But I want you to know that I'm getting these things from reputable sources. So it's not like I'm just making stuff up here. Of course, I have my own research that I've done with the Afro-American Academy, you know, with the redlining and urban renewal, and just my understanding of culture, land, and law, right? But in general, this is the work that we are doing here. So let's listen to this, and we'll talk to you on the other side.
As we're talking about some of my concerns about, you know, sometimes like a dehumanizing attitude towards another great MAGA America, whatever you want to call that, and how that might lead us to some dangerous places, and how maybe we can show a little empathy. It seems like you maybe had some objections to that point of view.
It's not that I have an objection to showing empathy for people, but I think it's important to realize like what robs people of empathy. Tyranny and misery are married in a way. They both, if you are acting in a tyrannical way, then most of the time that comes with a mentality that you've created to dehumanize the people that you are lording over. I'll give you an example. slavery in the economic capitalist system. But a tenet of slavery, a tenet of that white supremacy and that economic system was the belief that Black Americans or Black people or Africans that they were bringing over were subhuman. And in order to continue that, you had to paint them as subhuman. You had to take their humanity away, because if you see a child, or if you see a mother, or if you see a father, if you see human beings with souls, then you're doing, right? Yeah. So you have to say these people are beasts. These people have different brains. You get phrenology. You get all of this technology, this cultural technology that's invented alongside the prevailing belief that we have to have free labor.
Free labor. But you remember, you said cultural infrastructure, right? We're gonna be talking a lot about the culture, the cultural angles in the work that we do. But yeah, that was a very powerful point. But one of the things I always want to realize, you see, we always act as if dehumanizing of another person. Let me tell you who really gets dehumanized. It's the person that's dehumanizing. And then, so now when we say they're fascists and we talk about them so bad, it's actually something we've got to guard ourselves against. Because no matter what, it's wrong to lump everybody into the same basket. But nonetheless, what they're doing is making us want to lump them. Right? So, but what they never realize is that they lose every time you treat somebody negatively, you are the one that is losing. It's not just the African Americans that have lost their that you are dehumanizing them, yes, and there's an effect. But that are doing the dehumanizing are really showing that you're the animal. Because how could you treat somebody with no caring? How could you be so cruel? And they say, written by a Southerner, that they call the cruelty is the point. So we've got to understand that they've dehumanized themselves and are feeling very ashamed of their heritage. They don't if they feel that once this country becomes mostly community, there's an existential threat. Like I said, this is the year 2045 is when it's slavery, I believe, like maybe 19 or 20. Then you are already there are more 19 and younger of people of color than there are in that same age group today. So it's important that we begin to understand that this dehumanizing the tribe of white people in the South who this is an intergenerational cult. This is a culture. They have a religion. They have a homeland. They have belief systems and things that they teach racism even within their religion. This dehumanizing is something that we are going to have to deal with, because we're going to have to humanize at the same time. We cannot fight this battle being cruel. We will do this by any peaceful means necessary. We will change the narrative and push the narrative back so that we can be talking about the reparations that we need to talk about, right? We need to center the African-American experience, because the African-American experience is the natural kryptonite to their whole narrative. All right. I told you I went down to the No Kings march solely to pay respects to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King as the founder of the democracy that we enjoy today. Okay. There was no democracy in the South prior to the Civil Rights Act. So there was no democracy in the United States of America. We're living in a 57-year-old America. And that means that we have got to act like we're living in a 57-year democracy. And we've got to identify that those that needed to be forced to treat people to be human, to treat people as human beings with the love and consideration, and to sit here and to try and even mimic us or talk bad about us, today, after all we've been through, is even more humane. I will never give up the cumulative effects of what you've done. I'm not going to talk about zip racist. Oh, well, I'm not racist anymore. Well, that doesn't stop all the cumulative racism that you've been exhibiting for centuries. Okay, that doesn't take away the pain. And considering our situation, we've got to be centered in this conversation, right? Because it's only through our redemption that everyone redemptions can come in through, because we did not ask to be American. We did not pledge an oath to this Constitution, because we did it afterwards when we were forced to do it. But I'm talking about considering we were here at the beginning, we should have been able to do it then. But we didn't, because it wasn't a democracy. So we're not going to pretend it's a democracy until you actually give us the rights. And that's the funny thing. We shouldn't even be talking about that. You gave us anything. This is a God-given right. That's why it's a crime against humanity. So, I just wanted to show you that part, because it was, it speaks to the evil that is embedded within the Confederate ideology, that has deep stated the Republican Party and removed all the voices of reason, all the Americans from the Republican Party. They don't even know, there's so much history behind, they don't even realize they're Confederates. They think they're Americans, but they're just trying to come up with a Christian nation. Christian nation, we already heard that before, right? So, this is the battle, this is the fight. There's a culture war going on. There's a holy war going on. And we're going to have to physically make efforts in this struggle, in this jihad, towards a multicultural society where everyone is loved, with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's vision of a beloved community. And if we remember, we've got to do this for a long time. They can't come back like next election cycle, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all know that we got to go to the world and say, world, oh my goodness, we kind of got it wrong. We know, but you know what? It's never happening again. They have to believe and trust in us. We have to be able to go to Canada and try to mend offenses. Remember, there's tariffs coming. There's all sorts of things coming. The defunding is continuing. We're literally in the first year. So if we can bend the narrative, at least, so that we can deny them the permission structures, so we can talk about them in the relative terms that is culturally impactful. Democrats like to come with a lot of metrics. They like to come with a lot of do-gooderisms. And old jolly good old American values. It's time for some rhythm and for some soul, for some seasoning. You know, you can't trust people who ain't got no seasoning in their food. I tell people all the time. There's just something about it, right? I don't know what flavor you are, bro. That's where we're at. So the Redline Narratives, like I said, this is my first one. I know I'm going to get a little better. I'm recording. You're going to find it on, we got a Substack now. We've got, of course, the YouTube, Instagram. We're going to be trying to follow us, Redline Narratives, right? We're living in 57 years after Martin, all right? That's the 57 years after Martin, all right? That is what this is about. When do you mark democracy? So now, at the end, I'm going to try to do a little summary of the narrative. So the narrative that we worked on today, right? And I want to hear anything you guys have to say in the comments, is about why the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is so important to the No Kings protest and fighting you can call it autocracy, you can call it fascism. Those are the technical terms of the multiculture, which we're trying to get you guys to break out of. It is a holy war. It is a culture war. And it's important to say that, not because of what we say, it's because of what they say. Okay? Remember, they're the ones that declared war. Just like Ukraine. Russia declared war on Ukraine, right? You don't get to choose the kind of war, or what kind of war, how they are the war. And there's a reason why we need to use religious terminology, is because we need to make sure that we are speaking in the language that the common person, the person that is getting drifted on that side, to that side, because they're hearing religious terminology, to understand that we are actually doing a lot of work of that would be considered religious under Jesus, right? You know, caring for the poor, loving the stranger, treating your neighbor as thyself, you know. There's so many things that I think we need to do. I mean, we'll go into that later. Goodness, I'm trying to segue. But yes, and these are the narratives that we've worked on. We've worked on that. It's been 57 years since America had democracy, because in the South, prior to the Civil Rights Acts, all three of them, there was no democracy. So therefore, now that we're talking about democracy, that there was actually a democracy, okay, started 57 years ago, then now we have to explain that we understand that who got defeated, why were they defeated, right? Who defeated them, which was the Reverend Doctor, and that he's a man of God and he defeated them because they're trying to have a Christian nation, not us. So we've got to talk with the Christians in our group. We've got to use the legacy of the greatest, most influential Christian to walk America's green earth, green grass. And that's him, the most influential Christian, because he brought about, through his Christianity, nonviolent, peaceful movement, the three acts that now define today's democracy, American democracy, the best democracy we've ever had. So telling that story defeats their, their Christian manifest destiny, where they just believe that they're the center. I mean, I don't even understand. Like, what about Jesus doesn't come back as a white person? What are they going to do? You get where I'm coming from? What happens then? So it is what it is, right? But he is the founder of our democracy. We need to own that, and that in itself is a way of repelling and changing the narrative that they are feeling, right? So we've got to identify this. We worked on the narrative of definitely that the Confederacy versus the Republicans they're very distinct and very different. We talked about the multicultural. And if you want to learn more, like I said, go to Afro American TV. We've got hundreds of videos on there that are related to these topics that you can learn, and you can, when you have nothing to do and work, just, hey, play it, right? The Redline Narratives on podcast is what we're going to be doing moving forward. So we're very excited. So, hey, let's check it out. So, hey, we've got merch. Check us out. Redline Narratives merch, where you can get a T-shirt. Please support our work here at the Afro American Academy. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us wherever you find us. So this year, Afro American Academy, you know what? Let me turn on these lights. It looks like it got dark all of a sudden. Oh my goodness. It's a little lighter. Oh my goodness, I forgot it. All right. So back to what I was saying. So the Afro American Academy, right, is turning 10 years old this December. I cannot believe it. We started this journey 10 years ago. And so this year, we're thinking, what are we going to do? So we do have an event lined up, obviously, but we're going to be releasing the Redline Narratives, Lost Cultural Hubs of Boston documentary on YouTube, on Afro American TV, as our drive. To just say thank you to everyone for helping us develop over the 10 years, work on all these narratives. We're going to be in the Access Film Festival at Framingham on November 8th. So we've got a lot of things coming. But yes, support the channel. We're very thankful. Like I said, I know I just wanted a break, actually just start, right? So I'm very excited to get started with today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed the pictures from the No Kings protest. It was really a fun time. Like I said, people really came out. It was about fun. It was about peace. It was about unity. It was the multiculture. And in the multiculture, we have some work to do. We have some issues we have to deal with. And hopefully we're going to work together as a family, Redline Narratives Nation, to work on what we can do to combat these negative narratives that are going on, and make the necessary changes that we need to make sure that our communities continue to expose the culture to thrive, right? So without further ado, I want to thank everybody for entertaining me while I ramble for an hour. Well, I'm gonna get better, like I said, and we are just excited to get started because now that the studio is set up, I'm gonna be coming on here, dropping things. I'm just trying to get some of this stuff going, get some content going. But hey, we're gonna be looking for people to volunteer as well for editing, video editing. This is part we need people to help us, edit and things like that. We also looking for people. If you're a content creator and would like to be on the Afro-American TV platform, come on, the more the merrier. We have our we're going to have our cultural diversity training, but apart from that, just come on in and let's enjoy, let's build, we need a sustainable resistance, right? It's more about us and what kind of world we want to choose. For those to put a little bit in religious terms, the purpose is to create heaven or hell on earth, right? And so what side looks like heaven and what side looks like hell? What side is based in love? What side is based in hate? What side is truly and in every single way, just spewing the culture to thrive, right? Just fighting for it. And we're here, and this is my first, like I said, the first one that we're doing, but we are going to continue to fight. We are going to continue to struggle. I love this country, and I am a patriot of the United States of America, not the Confederate States of America. And we're going to have to call a thing a thing. And you don't have to be on the Confederate side, but guess what? It's oil and water don't mix, baby. And we are, we got to continue to struggle. We've got to continue to fight, right? And it's okay to be divisive when it's about that, right? We're not saying once we have the same narrative, once we can agree on the same narrative, the narrative of peace and justice, we'll be fine. If you need some additional, read the letter from Birmingham, from jail in Birmingham, from the Reverend Doctor, and it will talk about the negative peace. It will talk about, rather than the presence of justice, right? And we are here, and so the presence means we're going to create a way of life. And some of that thing means just, hey, you will have to say reverend. You will have to admit that 57 years is all we can say democracy has ever existed in the United States as a whole. We are going to have to take these narratives, because if you say Christopher Columbus did not discover America, you are erasing Native Americans. When you say that there's a 250-year democracy, you're erasing African Americans, you're erasing women, you're erasing poor people. There has been a deliberate attempt by a tribe in the United States of America, and think of it like African tribe, think of it like Native American tribe, a tribe of white people. Well, y'all got tribes, there's English, there's Spanish, there's French, there's Russian, y'all got tribes too. And there's a tribe in the United States that is trying to build a world based on hate. They're trying to make America great again. I don't call them MAGA because I'm not going to define them by what they want to be defined at. They are Confederates. I will tie them into their historical background. And if you don't think that what I'm saying is true, just understand this. There are forts, there are barracks in this United States of America that honor General Lee, a traitor a person who picked up arms against his country and committed treason, right? To keep people that look like me enslaved in bondage for perpetuity. Jeez, my lips slip. Well, you get what I'm saying. And we have them, the people, the country that beat them is giving them the names and honoring and venerating racists and Confederates, traitors to the United States of America. They were now, then 100 years after that, these people all vote against the Civil Rights Act, and then we have to force them to treat people, excuse me, like human beings. And if we don't think we need to be keeping an eye on them, we don't need to solidify and protect African Americans more. We've achieved it all. So multicultural, we got to wake up. No, we've got to censor more. They want to erase our history. We've got to protect our history, their African American history. We've got to have more laws around our cultural artifacts to protect who we are as an entity. We will not be erased. They've already taken our language, our cultural memory of where we belong in Africa, our identities, and even when we now made it out of slavery and we did so much to contribute, we basically redefined the music and entertainment business in the 20th century. It's all defined by us. And the thanks we get is that our communities are leveled to the ground in the 60s. All of them, all at the same time. We never even got to vote because our districts, we'll talk about gerrymandering on steroids. Our districts were destroyed due to the redlining and urban renewal. And after all that, we're still here today discussing some discussion about reparations and how being woke. I will stay woke to the day I die. And the reason why you do not want you don't want people to be awakened from the misdirection when you're focusing them on others instead of focusing them on the people with all the money and the power. We're going to fight back. And just like you always lose, and this is the thing about it, y'all. This is the thing about it. In the end of the day, they always lose. They lost the Civil War, they lost the Civil Rights, and they're going to lose this cultural war to this whole, whatever, holy war, whatever they want to call it. They're going to lose it because they always lose. In fact, it's called the lost cause. There's some videos in African American TV about the lost cause ideology. You can learn a lot about it too. So they always lose. So it's just that we have got to actually do the right thing. We've got to dig deeper, and we cannot pick and choose. In Boston, they do not teach about Boston public school desegregation in Boston public schools. So this is some of the stuff that we've got to deal with in Boston. So it's not that everybody's clear and this, but we've got to deal with it before you can go to somebody else and start pointing fingers. Right? So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Like I say, you're going to see a lot more clips. I'm thankful to everyone that, a few people that came on in and out. Like, what's going on? What's Marlon doing? All right. Well, take care. And remember, live the culture to thrive. Peace.